year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. When they had finished the days, as they returned, the boy Jesus lingered behind in Jerusalem. And Joseph and his mother did not know it, but supposing him to have been in the company, they went a day's journey and sought him among their relatives and acquaintances. So when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. Now so it was that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. So when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously." And he said to them, "Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business?" But they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them. But his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am so thankful for answered prayers. We have been praying for months that there would be no snow, no ice, no tornadoes, no weather problem in Columbus, Ohio on March 3rd, 2018. So thank you. My name's Peggy Tidwell. I'm glad to welcome you all here today. So, of course, I have announcements. We wouldn't be in this building without announcements. This presentation and the singing is being recorded. So I do ask that you take a minute and look at your cell phone and just please make sure that it's turned off or turned to silent. So please, if you would. And for those that are unfamiliar with the building, I want to just give you kind of the lay of the land here a little bit. There are exits here to my left, down the stairway. Exits on both sides, back here. There are restrooms. The ladies' room is to my right, where it says nursery. You just step in there and there's a ladies' room. And the men's room to my left by the office has been converted to a ladies' room for today, as well as at the bottom of the stairs. There's also an exit if you go through the nursery all the way to the back. There's an exit out to the parking lot there as well. Our speaker today, we are so grateful to have. She is originally from Rockville, Illinois, a Midwesterner, and grew up with 4 siblings. Sheila was newspaper editor in high school and cheerleader, and went on to receive her English degree with a history minor from East Tennessee State University. And in 1980, graduated from the Bear Valley School of Biblical Studies in Denver. She was the co-founder and managing editor of S&S Bovine Images, and also co-founder and managing editor of Tennessee Cattle Business, the official publication of the Tennessee Cattlemen's Association. 2 companies focused on marketing and promoting the Tennessee cattle industry. She was also managing partner of Mac Ink Printers. Sheila is currently the Republican Majority Floor Leader of the Tennessee House of Representatives, and she represents House District 64, which encompasses the cities of Columbia, Tennessee, Mount Pleasant, and Spring Hill. She has served in the 107th, 108th, 109th, and 110th General Assemblies, and serves on the Health, Education, Instruction, and Programs Committees. In 2013, Sheila received the Legislator of the Year Award by the South Central Tennessee Development District. She received the Freed-Hardeman University Horizons K-Battle Service Award and the Publishing Designs Golden Pen Award. In 2016, she received Agricultural Legislator of the Year by the Tennessee Cattlemen's Association. and in 2013 received the Elected Women of Excellence Award by the National Foundation for Women Legislators for her dedicated service, leadership, and passion to her country. She grew up in a home that had a strong faith, but her family did not participate in organized religion. She became a Christian when she was 20 years old after meeting Stan Butt, who would become her husband. Stan preaches at the Anderson Bend Church of Christ in Duck River, Tennessee, and was executive director of the Tennessee Walking Horse Breeders and Exhibitors Association. They have 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and one of her sons, Kyle Butt, is director of biblical research for Apologetics Press in Montgomery, Alabama. We have several of his books in our children's library downstairs. She noticed those last night, didn't you? Sheila is known nationwide for her integrity and her articulate message for standing for faith, family, and freedom. I was honored to hear her, as many of you did, at Polishing the Pulpit this year, and we are so blessed to have her with us today. Sheila Butt.
Let me see if I can get this mic on. Where did Peggy get all that information? If my you Googled me, oh my. If my assistant is sending all that out, that's way over the top. I'm going to tell her I don't need that much syrup on my pancakes. But most everything we do, a story is told about a little lady, and she had been taking cancer treatments, and she had begun to lose her hair over time. And one morning she woke up, and she had 3 little hairs on her head. She said, "Oh, I think I'll braid my hair today." So she took her 3 little hairs, and she braided her hair, put a little pin in it, and went out for the day and had a wonderful day. A couple of weeks later, she woke up, and she only had 2 little hairs left. She said, "Oh my, I think I'll wear pigtails today." So she put her little hair in pigtails and went about her business. About a week later, she woke up, had 1 little hair left. She said, oh, I know, today I'll wear a ponytail. So she put her little hair in a ponytail. And about a week later, she woke up and didn't have any hair left on her head. And she said, "I am so happy this morning. I do not have to worry about my hair." So it's all about your attitude and how you feel about the memories, the things that are going on in your life, and the things that you are making that will matter for eternity. Today, we're going to have a paradigm shift in thinking about the memories that we're making and the memories that are most precious to us. Now, do you know what a paradigm shift is? Stephen Covey talks about being on a train one day, and he was on that train, and there was a man there who was totally into himself, and there were 4 children there, and they were just being wild. They would go sit with somebody else, and they would knock on their paper, and they were just doing everything to aggravate the people on that train. And he thought, what is this father doing? Can he not control these children? So finally, Stephen Covey just went over to the father and he said, "Look, your children are bothering everyone on this train. He said, "Why aren't you controlling your children?" And the man said, "Oh, I'm sorry." He said, "We've just been to their mother's funeral, and I am so sorry." He said, "I will take care of the children." Well, Stephen Covey said at that moment, he certainly had a paradigm shift in his thinking. What he thought was so important a minute ago wasn't so important right this minute, was it? And so he decided he had something in his briefcase that would help those children. He got a pad and a pencil, and other people were giving them chewing gum, and other people decided all of a sudden that they were going to help this man with his children because they had a paradigm shift in their thinking about what those children would do. I had that in my own life when we built on our farm, and I wanted a pond. Now, until that time, I did not like rainy days. I just didn't like rainy days. But guess what? After we dug the pond, if it didn't rain, I was not going to have any water or any fish. So all of a sudden, I counted and looked forward to the rainy days. So I had to change my thinking. And we today are going to understand that we have to change our thinking about the memories that we are making that last for eternity. The memories that make sure that when it's time to go to heaven, you know, when I got up this morning and I'm getting all ready and I have to have time to get ready, but you know what? There will come a time when the time for getting ready is over. We are in the getting ready process. We are getting ready in this life to spend our lives for eternity. And I don't even like the word spend, because you're not going to spend eternity. You are going to live in eternity, and you won't be spending up that time. But you will not have time to be getting ready. This is our getting ready time. So our memories should be made in terms of we're getting ready for eternity. And this culture that we live in is not a culture that is expecting eternity. Most people in this culture have their eyes looking backwards. Do you know what that means? That means your eyes are looking at you. It means it's all about me. Yesterday, my little granddaughter was going to have her picture made at school. And of course, we usually make a big deal about that. And my son said, "Oh, Mother, it's no big deal now. Remember, we used to take pictures, one picture, in the 5th grade, and that was our school picture for the year." And he said, "Mother, now they're taking 50 selfies a day." He said, "You don't need to worry so much about the school picture." And that's just the truth, isn't it? I was going to teach at a teenage girls' gathering in a high school, and I was going to teach about modesty, which, by the way, women, we're losing the war on modesty. When I walked through that airport yesterday, unbelievable what some people think pass as clothing. But anyway, I was going to teach the young girls, and it was going to be at a big high school, and I decided that I was going to dress very immodestly. I bought this little black dress and fish hose and all this immodest stuff, and I was going to teach them about modesty, but I was going to actually be immodest. And I was going to tell them sometimes you think you're modest when you're not. And so I told my daughter-in-law that I was going to do that. Well, after that weekend, my phone rang, and it was my son Kyle. He said, "Mother, you are not going to do that, are you?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Don't you think that would make the point that a lot of times we think we're modest, but we're not?" He said, "No, ma'am." He said, "That will be on the internet within 2 hours." He said, "They will be taking your picture. That will be all over the internet." Mother, you don't want to do that. So see, we're in a different culture now, aren't we? And the culture is all about me. And the culture is, in 1 minute, anything you do will be on the internet if somebody wants to put it there. It's really a scary time. But the fact of the matter is, Satan loves it. Who does the Bible tell us is the prince of this world? That's exactly right. Satan is the prince of this world, and he is having a heyday with us right now because we're focused on ourselves. And we're allowing things to happen in our lives that would not happen if we look outward. There are 2 kinds of women in this world. There's a kind of woman who comes in the room and says, "Here I am." And then there's the woman that comes in the room and says, "There you are." You want to be the there you are woman. You want to be the woman who makes others feel special. Because you know what? You don't have to have that. God has already given you that, ladies. You are special. You are made in the image of God. You don't have to please the world. So make sure that the memories we're making are the memories that say, "There you are. What can I do for you?" Make the other person feel special. Our most precious memories as Christian women won't be based on these cultural standards. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, I had a son that was a very good basketball player. 24 points a night. We were proud of that. We loved that he was a good basketball player. But we constantly told him, if God had not given you that ability, if God had not given you those muscles, if God had not made you the way you were created, you couldn't play basketball. You see, if we were found talking more about his 24 points in a ball game than about the fact that he read Scripture on Sunday morning in the Lord's body, which one do you think he thinks is more important? If you are constantly talking about their athletic ability or their academics ladies, you're missing the boat, because they begin to think that's what's more important. I believe there will be many A students who will not be in heaven because we made them think that was more important than eternity and being a part of the Lord's body and loving the Lord. What about when we have a little girl? The little girl comes into the church building. She walks down and she has her shoes matching her bow, matching her purse, matching everything. And you say, "Oh, honey, you're so beautiful." What are we telling her? Why didn't we say, "You're so beautiful," when you stepped back and let an elderly lady in the door before you? How about if we stepped back and said, "Could you help so-and-so get her plate today at lunch because she's having a little hard time? Could you go help her with her plate?" Why aren't we teaching our daughters that that is beautiful? We're buying into the cultural standards. And those memories are not going to be the most precious if we lose our children. One decision at a time, I fear that we are making memories that are cultural and worldly and that our children think are more important than the things that matter the most. If your little girl is a cheerleader, fine, that's wonderful, but make sure that she understands that it's more important for her to be helping in the nursery on Sunday morning if that's what's needed. Teach our children to serve others. Those are the memories that will matter. Several years ago, Stan Jr. was teaching at a youth rally. And a lot of times, I understand Kyle's going to be in some places around here. I don't usually know where the boys are teaching and preaching, and they usually don't know where I am. Matter of fact, one time my mother called my husband and said, "Where is Sheila?" He said, "I think she's in Puerto Rico." My mother said, "You don't know?" He said, "Well, not exactly. I don't exactly know where she is today." And that's been the story of our life. I mean, I have a very good husband. He lets me go. He knows that he's the love of my life. He doesn't have to worry about me. Between him and the Lord, I have enough loves in my life, and he doesn't have to worry about that. But I went to this youth rally, people like this, in a big place like this, and I sat down in the back. And our son, Stan Jr., was talking about a day that was one of the worst I've ever had with Stan Jr. He said, "I came home from college, and I told my mama that I needed more than $25 a week in cash. And my mama said," well, this is what happened. He sat down, he was dating, it was his freshman year. He says, "Mama, I need more than $25 a week to live on at school." I said, "Well, Stan, do you have a meal ticket?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you have a roof over your head?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are your books paid for?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then, Stan, if we had $1 million, I would still just give you $25 a week." And he's telling all the youth there about that. And I remember that day, and when I told Stan Jr. that, he was mad at me. Oh, he was mad at me. He went out in that little gray truck and left for Freed Hardeman mad at me. And I stood there with tears streaming down my face because I thought, now he's driving and he's mad and this is not good. But Father, it's grow-up time. It's just grow-up time. So he was telling all these youth about that day and about how mad he was at his mother. And he said, "But you know what? My mother taught me to be content with what I have. And that if I needed more, I was going to have to work for it." And he said, "That is one of the best lessons my mother ever taught me." And he said, "It's been especially good for marriage." I don't want to go there. I don't know if that means he gets $25 a week. I'm just not going there. But the memories that matter the most are the hard memories. The ones that it was a trial to go through. The ones that your hardest times with your children will probably be the times they learn the most. They don't learn the most at Disney. They don't. Much as we all love to go and make those fabulous memories, it's fun. But I've never heard them talk about it when they're preaching. I've heard them talk about the fact that they weren't afraid of getting a spanking at school. They weren't one bit afraid of the principal. They were afraid of coming home and getting reprimanded by their father or I. They were. From the time they were little, we decided, and young people and grandparents, you must decide that you are the authority. You must make that decision. If they do not obey you, they will not obey God. They won't. Do not obey you whom they have seen. Do you think they will obey God whom they have not seen? No. When the boys were about, maybe, I'm going to say first, second, even probably before first grade, second and third grade, we lived in East Tennessee. We were in a mission field. We really didn't have much money. We didn't. We had $13 a week that we would use for Sundays to get to eat out. And we would eat at Captain D's and get the family meal. And I remember it was $13. Now, since the boys are grown, they said, and Mother, we never had enough fish. Well, I'm sorry. We were eating out that day. We had $13, and that's what we were going to have. But this particular day, we had driven up to Bristol, and they had seen this little truck that they wanted. Now, we were so broke, we couldn't pay attention. But they wanted this little truck. So I thought, okay, today I'm going to buy them this little truck. And we're just going to have to not go out to eat on Sunday. I knew that was what I was going to pay for that. So I bought the truck. We're driving home about 13 miles back to our house, and the boys started fighting over the truck in the back seat of the car. And I said, boys, if you don't quit fighting over that truck, I will throw it out the window. They started again. I just put my hand back there like this. They put the truck in my hand. I rolled down the window and threw the truck out the window. Don't think when we got home I didn't want to go back and get that truck, because I did. But do you think that from that time on, when their mama told them that she would do something, did they believe me? They did. Always. Even when I told them I might shoot him in the foot, they believed me. Came back one day, one of them that I told I would shoot him in the foot if he ever ran away from me. We were shooting targets on the back deck. I was missing the bullseye. I was shooting way around the target. He said, Mother, I'm glad I never ran from you. You would not have hit my foot. You would have shot me in the head and killed me. I just wanted them to know that they had to obey. And we're in a culture today where no one wants to obey authority. And when you have that, you have chaos. And we are heading toward chaos because we're not making anyone obey authority. And ladies, this is our responsibility. This is a woman's responsibility, not just the man's. Don't say, wait till your daddy comes home. It's time, and grandparents, quit giving your grandchildren everything but what they really need. They need to know that you, as the grandparent, are respected. You don't have to be the one that gives them a bike every Christmas. You have to be the one when you say, come here, Nathan. He actually comes. Yeah, what a gift you're giving that child when you give them that lesson. And it's hard. Yes, it is. You think this is supposed to be the fun time. But with the generation of young people that we have coming up today, this is the time more than ever to teach them respect for authority. And it's our responsibility. As much as anyone's, as much as their parents, when those children are with you, you make sure they obey you. Very, very important. You'll be giving them a gift that will be treasured from now on. I wrote the book, Seeking Spiritual Beauty, because we're always trying to look like the culture wants us to. Dolly Parton wrote in Reader's Digest, if I see anything sagging, bagging, or dragging, I get it sucked, plucked, or tucked. She said it takes a lot of money to look as cheap as I do. I mean, how true is that? And how many young people we have today, young ladies who are asking for breast augmentation instead of a college degree. I mean, what's wrong with this picture? And it's the cultural idea of beauty. We have got to quit comparing ourselves with each other. I walked into Silver Screen Video a few years ago, and I walked in there, and they said, did you used to be Sheila Keckler? And I said, yes, I did. They said, well, We saw your annual when you were in high school, and you had a sister who was beautiful. I grew up with a sister who was beautiful, and our whole lives, Nancy was called the pretty one. I mean, that's just the way it was. I was used to that. That is the world's way of comparing. And as Christian women, we have got to quit comparing ourselves to one another. God uses every single one of us and our talents in a different way. I walked into a congregation one time, wanted a cup of coffee. I said, "Do you think I could get a cup of coffee?" And they said, "Well, if the kitchen Nazis will let you." Oh, so somebody was in charge of the kitchen, right? If you have your Bibles, go with me to John chapter 11. Let me show you something here. Because you see, I think that Martha gets a bad rap. John chapter 11. Now we know that there was the time when Jesus told Martha, Mary has chosen that better part. Because really the New Testament was freeing for women. It was liberating for women. Paul said, let the women learn. Do you know that women before then weren't allowed to sit and listen to the men? They weren't allowed to learn those things. In our culture, people think that the New Testament is holding women back, and that is so untrue. And in that culture, the New Testament was granting them liberties that they had never had before. So let's look at John chapter 11, start with verse 1. Now when a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and Martha, it was that Mary who had anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Okay, now go over to verse 17. He has let Lazarus lie there because he wants to make a point. But what I want to make a point with you is the two different kind of sisters that are in this story and the blessing of each. Start with 17. So when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had joined the women around Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Now we later learn that Mary at this time did not know that Jesus had come yet. I get the impression that Mary would have gone with Martha. But we learn in another passage that she didn't know yet that Jesus had come. But look at Martha. Martha ran immediately to Jesus. Now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Oh, what does that tell us that Martha knew about Jesus? That he had the power over life and death. That he was God's son. Wait a minute, but I thought Martha was the one who was always serving and always anxious and always worried. Oh yes, we thought that, didn't we? We didn't know that Martha said, I know that if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And look at verse 22. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Well, Martha might have been one of the kitchen Nazis, but she understood who Jesus was, didn't she? I want us, sisters, to be very, very careful in making any judgment about someone else's spirituality. Extremely important. Our culture is very busy judging people on their size, their house, their car. Let me tell you something. I guarantee you, God does not care what kind of car you drive. He cares what kind of woman drives the car. He does not care what kind of house you live in. He cares what kind of woman lives in the house. So we need to look out for our own interests, help other people, but be very careful about not comparing ourselves to our sisters in Christ. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Oh, let's see what Martha knows about that. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I'm the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Martha, do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is come into the world. At that time, that was the most profound statement of who Jesus was that had been made in the New Testament. And look who made that statement. Martha. You know, Martha the worrywart. Martha the one who in verse 38 Then Jesus, again groaning, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, "Lord, by this time there is a stench. He's been dead for 4 days." Martha's worried about the stink that's going to be when they open the tomb. Isn't that so, Martha? But she also knew exactly who Jesus was and was willing to say, "You are the Son of God. If you say it, God will do it." So all of us have different ways to serve. And some may be the ones who are the kitchen Nazis, and some may be the ones who are cleaning the nursery, and some may be the ones who are changing the diapers. But our job is to will ourselves to do God's will, even when you don't feel like it. Listen to me, ladies. The memories that will be the most precious to you are the ones you made yourself do. It seems hard, doesn't it? And we all get tired. Hey, one Wednesday night I had been teaching Bible class of little kids age 2 to 10 for Sunday nights, Wednesday nights. I'd been teaching forever. Stan Jr. had gone to Emory University, probably 11 years. Stan Jr. had been going to Emory University, just got down there, called that Wednesday morning and said, "Mom, my car's been stolen." I said, "Oh, Stan." I said, "We have 2 other kids in college. We cannot buy you a new car." I said, "Babe, you're just going to have to go get a bicycle and ride that bicycle to Emory University and to worship and wherever you have to go." He said, "Okay, Mom." So he went to Target or somewhere, bought him a bicycle. So I had worked all day. I'm going into that class and I'm so tired on that Wednesday night. I think, Father, I cannot teach this class tonight. You know how the kids are on Wednesday night? A little rowdy. They've been sitting in school all day. I'm tired. I'm picturing Stan Jr. riding his bicycle in downtown Atlanta, and I just don't know if I can do this. So I said, "Father, help me know what to do when I get in that class." So we go in there, and I have about 10 little ones sitting around, and I said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do tonight," because I didn't have the energy, didn't have anything to teach that class. I said, "Here's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to pray for Stan Jr. to get his car back." Now, I knew this would take 45 minutes because do you know how children pray? They pray for Aunt Gracie. They pray for their dog, Slick Willie. They pray for Nora Kate prays for all the animals who take care of us. And I'm trying to figure anyway, so they just pray for everything. I thought, hey, 10 people? This may take up the entire class. So we started, and they prayed, and they prayed. And in the middle of all those prayers, they would say, "And please help Stan Jr. get his car back." And so, I walked out of there thinking, "Thank you, Father, for letting me get through this class." That was Wednesday night. Friday morning, the phone rang. Now, Kyle's standing there with me in the kitchen. I pick up the phone. Yeah, that's when you actually picked up the phone on the wall in the kitchen. I actually have a picture covering that big hole where the phone in the wall in the kitchen was. And I picked up the phone. It was Stan Jr. just elated, and he said, "Mom, you are never going to believe this. We got the car back." I said, "What? We got the car back?" He said, "Yes, the police said they just drove it out of gas and just left it somewhere." I said, "Stan Jr., that is awesome." We hung up the phone. I said, "Kyle, Stan got the car back." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, it's through no faith of your own, Mother." Because all week I'm saying they're never going to get that car back. I can't believe Stan's going to be riding that bicycle. Who believed that God could get that car back if they prayed for it? Every little heart that prayed, "God, please help Stan get that car back." They believed it. And that's why the Bible says, unless you become as little children, you will not inherit the kingdom of God. If you don't believe what you're asking for will be done, don't ask for it. The Father says, "I will be there. I will answer your prayers." Now, it may not be in your time. It may not be exactly when you wanted it to be answered. Several years ago, I wanted to go to Honduras on a mission trip. Now, Stan Jr. and George have been married 20 years. It's hard for me to believe, but they had just gotten married. I wanted to go to Honduras. It's Thanksgiving. We're sitting around the kitchen table, and I say sweetly to my husband, First let me tell you who's there. Stan's new wife is there. His new in-laws, which is her mother and her dad, and my Cliff's future wife. And we're all sitting around the table at Thanksgiving, and I just looked at my husband and I said, I would love to go to Honduras on a mission trip. And he said, I forbid you to go to Honduras. Oh, I'm a woman, remember? And so generally to that we would say, I'll go if I want to. I mean, that's kind of what Eve did. So I'm sitting there. Stan Jr.'s mother-in-law's mouth is just going, I know my boys are on pins and needles. What is Mother going to do? And I simply said, would somebody pass the biscuits, please? And I'd like some butter, please. And just let that go. Absolutely let it go. That night, we're getting ready for bed. I said, Stan, I really don't appreciate how you handled that at dinner today. I have always wanted to go to Honduras. He said, oh, but Sheila, I was just thinking about you and your health, and I don't want you to go over there and get sick, and they have the bacteria that we don't have, and blah, blah. I said, Stan, I'm just saying I don't appreciate how you handled that today. Well, the next December, this is a year later, Kyle calls me from Freed-Hardeman and says, Mother, he said, I'm going on a mission trip to Honduras, and my friend Josh was going with me, and he is sick. He cannot go. Mother, it's going to be hard. There aren't going to be bathrooms. We're going to eat military meals. We're going to be way out in the boonies there. But he said, Mother, if you could go, that would just mean the world to me. I said, boy, you know what your father said. I said, why don't you come home next weekend and we'll ask him together? He said, okay. So the next weekend, Kyle comes home. When his father gets home, we go in and we're standing there, and Kyle says, Dad, I need Mom to go on a mission trip with me to Honduras. Now, if you know Kyle, he's about 6'2", probably could take care of anything that happened. My husband looked at him and said, fine. I know this one thing. If I had challenged him at that table, in front of everybody at that table, he would not nearly have been as gracious to say, fine. Because I would have challenged something that men have called ego. And he would have said, we've had this conversation, and I said, you're not going. But you see, God gave me the desires of my heart. Because I waited, I trusted that he would. It wasn't in my time when I thought it should be. I believe that when you will yourself to do God's will, God will give you the desires of your heart. It may not be in your time. It might not. But wait and know that God is there and he is helping you with those things. And let me ask you a question. Do you think Kyle and I, in our memories together, remember the trip to Disney nearly as much as we remember sponging out the mouths of people who were having dental work done, sponging the blood out of their mouths, watching people every day come at 12:01 to bring their children who sometimes had to have 9 teeth extracted? Oh, and ladies, I taught the Bible class. So every day they would send me to this place to teach Bible class, and I would stay there all day teaching these children. And first day I had about 4 children, but Jack Farber said, Sheila, you keep teaching, they will come. By the last night I had over 250 children. And you know what, I know I have to quit this. You know something about those children? They could actually sit and listen for an hour. You know what I did? The very last night we were there, it was dark, and you know how they preach those long sermons? They're preaching these long sermons, and I've got 250 kids, and I said, how am I going to teach these 250 kids? I don't have papers, I don't have pencils for them. You know what I did for an hour? I told them the story of Jesus Christ. I told them the story of God, and Jesus as a baby, and Jesus in the temple, and Jesus' mother keeping all these things in her heart, and how he was beaten, and how when he was on the cross, he didn't say a word after he'd been tortured and beaten, and when the thieves were cursing so badly that secular history says that the soldiers would bend down and cut their tongues out. Jesus didn't say a word. And then when he was on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. Whoa, that's a story. That's a story that should be able to keep anybody's attention. But see, in our culture today, which we'll talk about after the break here, in our culture today, we're letting the media make our children's memories. We are allowing the media to make their memories. And they wouldn't remember an hour story on the life of Jesus Christ unless you had puppets and music. And I mean, it's crazy what we're doing to our children. So we'll talk about that after the break, and we need to take a break now. Thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. Just share it with people that you can share it with.
Ladies, can I have your attention? We want to pass out a game. If you just sit for just a second, please. Yes, please. I wanted to share with you, we were doing a count back there. We still have walk-ins coming in. We're at 211 ladies. And people still coming. Isn't that wild? From 32 different congregations in 3 states. So we're very grateful for that. Thank you, Jennifer, Wendy. Now you can get your cell phones out. Remember I told you to put them on silent? Now you get them out. What's being passed out is a game that we'll do during the break. So the break, you have the opportunity to, we've all had coffee and water. I showed you where the restrooms are. There's additional muffins, fruit, coffee, water here. But also through the building, there are opportunities for photos. So we want you to take lots of photos today. So right behind me to the right, in the back right here, there is a border with a good background for photo. In room 200 back here, there's an opportunity for a photo. If you walk down the nursery aisle, it's been framed out, there's opportunities for photos. And the registration table is being taken down as we speak, there's opportunities there. So please, and also where the elevator is, there are chairs and a nice background. So we'd like to see your photos. But if you look at the game, there's an icebreaker. We want you to share your photos, share your memories that are on that cell phone. Yeah, get to know each other. So let me see if I can find mine. Do you see it? Does everyone have one now? So for example, if you have a picture of snow on your phone, you could sign your name there on someone else's paper. And you've got 30 minutes to get as many of these as you can. So for example, there's the letter H, a vehicle, a group picture. So get those cell phones out and let's see what you got. And the countdown will start, so watch the screen when it's time to come back. Thank you.